Imagine being on your deathbed and you suddenly drop a secret.
Oh, wow.
A secret that could shake an entire monarchy to its core.
Right.
That's exactly what Lucy Walter did,
Mhm.
the mistress of King Charles II.
Yes.
She claimed they were secretly married
Secretly married.
and that proof of their union was hidden in a mysterious black box.
Whoa.
So today we're diving deep into the life of Lucy Walter.
I'm excited.
Her story is a captivating blend of royal romance,
Yeah.
illegitimate children,
Oh, man.
and political intrigue that ultimately left its mark on English history.
This is going to be good.
Okay, so let's set
Yeah.
the scene.
Okay.
It's 1658 in Paris,
Right?
and Lucy Walter, a woman in her late 20s, is dying
Mm.
on her deathbed.
Yeah.
She makes a shocking confession to a clergyman.
Ooh, a confession.
She
What
claims
did you say?
she and Charles were secretly married.
Wow.
And there's a
Wow.
black box out there somewhere that contains evidence of their marriage.
Black box.
You can't make this stuff up.
Not kidding.
So before we go any further,
Yeah.
who are the main players in this royal drama?
Well, obviously, we have King Charles II himself.
Of course.
History remembers him as a charming figure,
Right.
but also known for his numerous affairs.
Many affairs indeed.
Then we have Lucy Walter,
Okay.
described as a beautiful and spirited woman.
I see.
Importantly, she was also of Welsh gentry.
Interesting.
And then there's their son, James Scott, the Duke of Monmouth.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit and learn more about our king.
Okay.
What was his upbringing like?
Well, Charles's childhood was a fascinating mix of influences.
Oh, how so?
His mother,
Yeah.
Henrietta Maria, was a very flamboyant figure.
Yep.
She exposed him to the lavish and, let's say, socially liberal atmosphere of the French court.
So parties, courtly intrigue, and affairs were just part of everyday life.
Exactly.
Ah.
It was a stark contrast to his father, Charles I, who was much more austere.
Yes.
And, of course, met a tragic end during the English Civil War.
Those are some pretty different parenting styles.
Yeah, definitely.
I wonder how those early experiences shaped Charles's own views on relationships and power.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
Now, what about Lucy?
Yeah.
Her life seems pretty different from Charles's at first glance.
You're right.
So what was her early life like?
Well, unlike Charles, who grew up in the royal court,
Mm-hmm.
Lucy's early life was marked by financial struggles and instability in her family. In fact, her parents actually divorced,
Right.
which was incredibly rare at the time.
Wow.
This led to her moving between relatives
Oh, wow.
and eventually ending up in London.
Okay.
It's likely that she sought out protector arrangements.
Protector arrangements.
Yeah.
What were those?
Well, essentially, these were relationships where a woman, often with limited financial means, would enter into a sort of agreement with a wealthier, more powerful man. It wasn't quite prostitution,
Okay.
but it existed in this gray area where women had very few options to secure financial stability or to advance socially.
That sounds like a difficult situation.
Definitely.
It must have been tough for women back then.
Yeah, it really highlights the limited options available to women in the 17th century.
Absolutely.
It's important to consider that historical context.
So how did Lucy and Charles meet?
They crossed paths in 1648 in Holland.
Holland.
Yeah.
What were they both doing there?
They were both in exile at the time.
Exile.
Charles was fleeing the aftermath of the English Civil War,
Okay.
and Lucy was likely seeking refuge
Oh, wow.
and potentially hoping to improve her situation.
Exile sounds like the perfect backdrop for a whirlwind romance.
You could say that.
Were they smitten right away?
It seems Charles was immediately captivated by Lucy.
He was smitten.
They began an affair,
Oh, wow.
and she soon became pregnant with their son, James.
Okay.
Sadly, their time together was cut short when Charles had to move on.
A new love, a baby on the way, and suddenly he's gone again.
It was a roller coaster.
What happened to Lucy and James while Charles was away?
Lucy gave birth to James in Rotterdam,
Okay.
and eventually she reunited with Charles in France.
They got back together.
But their relationship faced some challenges.
Oh, what kind of challenges?
Well, Charles's mother, Henrietta Maria, strongly disapproved of Lucy.
I can imagine she wasn't thrilled about having a grandson born out of wedlock.
Exactly.
So did Charles try to distance himself from Lucy to make his family happy?
He did make some attempts to create distance,
Okay.
but their lives remain very much intertwined.
Of course, especially with a son together.
Exactly.
And things got even more complicated for Lucy back in England.
They did.
What kind of trouble did she find herself in?
Well, she was actually imprisoned in England.
Imprisoned.
Yes.
What for?
And she was accused of various scandalous acts, including an affair with a married man.
Wow.
To protect herself and James. She cleverly presented herself as a widow.
That's smart.
It was a way to shield them from the ruling parliament.
So was Charles trying to help her during all of this?
Unfortunately, at this point,
Yeah.
Charles saw James as a potential threat,
A threat?
another possible claimant to the throne.
Oh, I see.
He actually orchestrated attempts to take James away from Lucy.
So not exactly a fairy tale ending for their love story.
No, not quite.
It sounds like everyone was caught in this web of politics and personal ambitions.
A very messy situation.
What happened to Lucy in the end?
Sadly, Lucy died in 1658,
Oh, no.
leaving behind the mystery of the black box and her claim of marriage to Charles.
But her death didn't end the saga, did it?
Not at all.
Because the rumors of their marriage continued to spread,
Yes.
especially after Charles returned to the throne.
Right.
Before we dive into all of that,
Mhm.
let's take a quick pause
Okay.
and recap what we've learned so far.
Yes, let's rewind a bit and make sure we're all on the same page before we move on.
Sounds good to me.
Perfect. As we've heard, Lucy Walter's life was quite a whirlwind,
Oh, yeah.
full of romance and exile and all sorts of political twists and turns.
Absolutely.
But even after her death, the rumors about her alleged marriage to Charles II just wouldn't die down.
And those rumors had real consequences, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, a legitimate heir born out of wedlock could have completely overturned the line of succession,
Exactly.
especially with Charles's Catholic brother James waiting in the wings.
You see, England was deeply divided along religious lines at this time.
Right.
Many Protestants were really afraid of having a Catholic monarch,
Yeah.
and they saw James Scott, the Duke of Monmouth.
Charles and Lucy's son
Exactly.
as a possible alternative. So this rumor of a secret marriage and a legitimate Protestant heir just threw everything into chaos.
It was a powder keg waiting to explode.
Wow.
And that mystery surrounding the black box, whether
Right.
it actually existed or not,
Yeah.
became a really powerful symbol.
It represented hope for a different future for England.
Exactly the one that many Protestants were hoping for.
It's amazing how this personal story, this rumor of a secret marriage, became so entangled with the political and religious landscape of the time.
It really shows how fragile power can be,
Yeah.
especially when you have questions about legitimacy and who's going to inherit the throne.
So how did Charles handle this situation?
Well, he did legitimize James Scott
Okay.
as the Duke of Monmouth
Okay.
and brought him into the royal court.
So did he ever acknowledge the marriage to Lucy?
Publicly. No, he always denied it.
Why do you think that was?
Well, admitting to a secret marriage would have really undermined his authority
Sure.
and probably fueled those religious and political tensions that were already gripping the country.
It must have been incredibly difficult for Charles to navigate all of that,
Absolutely.
trying to balance his personal life with his duty to the nation.
It was a very high-stakes balancing act.
So James Scott lived this privileged life as the Duke of Monmouth,
Yeah.
but he always had this shadow of illegitimacy hanging over him. That's right.
Did that eventually lead to problems?
Sadly, yes.
Oh.
After Charles II died, his brother James, the Catholic brother, became king.
As many had feared.
And this led to the Monmouth Rebellion,
Okay.
which was a direct challenge to James II's claim to the throne.
So this is where the story of Lucy Walter and that black box comes full circle.
Exactly.
So what happened?
Well, John Scott's supporters used that rumor of the secret marriage to rally people to their cause.
I see.
They claimed that James Scott was the rightful heir,
Okay.
the legitimate son of Charles II.
So they were saying the black box held the proof.
Exactly.
It's incredible how the ghost of Lucy Walter and that mysterious box continued to haunt the monarchy, even after she was gone.
It really is.
But what was the outcome of the rebellion? Did James Scott manage to take the throne?
Sadly, no.
Oh.
The rebellion failed,
Okay.
and James Scott was captured and executed by James II.
A tragic end.
It really shows just how high the stakes were in this struggle for power. So we've talked about Lucy's life, her relationship with Charles, the political chaos that their alleged marriage caused, and the tragic fate of their son.
Yeah.
But what about that mysterious black box? Was it ever found?
That's the big question.
Right.
And it remains a mystery. Some historians believe the box never even existed.
You mean it was just a rumor?
Perhaps intentionally spread.
To destabilize the monarchy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Others believe that it did exist,
Okay.
but it was either destroyed or maybe it's still hidden somewhere waiting to be discovered.
It's like a historical treasure hunt.
It is.
I can see why people are still fascinated by this story centuries later.
Absolutely.
There's something about unsolved mysteries,
Yeah.
especially when they involve royalty and secret documents.
It captures the imagination.
What if that box contained proof of Lucy and Charles's marriage?
Right.
Could it have changed the course of English history?
It's a question we might never know the answer to,
That's true.
but it's certainly fun to think about.
It reminds us that history isn't always neat and tidy.
No, it's not.
Sometimes we just have fragments of information and conflicting accounts.
And we have to draw our own conclusions based on the limited evidence.
Speaking of evidence, what about that deposition we mentioned?
Yes.
The one from 1649.
The one that might shed some light on the black box mystery.
Let's delve into that.
Okay, let's see what it reveals about Lucy, the box, and this whole web of intrigue.
All right, let's take a closer look at this 1649 deposition
Okay.
and see if it can unlock any secrets about the black box.
All right.
Can you remind us what this document is all about
Sure.
and why is it so important to our story?
This deposition comes from a young man
Okay,
named Edward Fenn.
Edward Fenn,
He served under a naval captain
Oh.
named Robert Killigrew.
Robert Killigrew.
Now, from what we can gather,
Oh.
Killigrew was a bit of a scoundrel.
Oh, really? In what way?
Well, according to Fenn's testimony,
Mm-hmm.
he accompanied Killigrew and Lucy Walter on a trip
Okay.
from The Hague to Rotterdam.
Right.
And Lucy had a small cabinet with her.
A cabinet.
Yes.
Could that be the box?
It's possible.
Okay.
And Fenn was tasked with guarding it.
Interesting.
You know, Killigrew kept pressuring Fenn to get into that cabinet,
Yeah.
even suggesting that he swap out the silver coins inside with lead and then toss the whole thing overboard.
Sounds like he had something up his sleeve.
Yeah, he definitely had a plan.
Was he just after the money, or was there more to it?
Well, Fenn's account does mention that Killigrew eventually got his hands on the cabinet
He did.
and was later seen counting gold coins.
So money was definitely a motivating factor.
For sure.
But here's the interesting part.
What's that?
Fenn also remembers seeing papers inside the cabinet.
Oh, paper.
Papers. Could these be the proof of marriage that Lucy talked about?
Sadly, the deposition doesn't say what was written on those papers.
So frustrating.
Yeah.
It's like finding a treasure chest and it's empty. We're left wondering what those papers were.
It's a mystery.
Love letters, financial records, or maybe the evidence that could have rewritten history.
We can only speculate.
And we don't even know for sure why Lucy requested this deposition in the first place.
That's true.
Was she trying to document the attempted theft?
Maybe.
Or was she creating a paper trail?
To prove she had the box at that time.
It's like she was playing the long game.
It's possible.
It shows how carefully she had to operate in those days.
Absolutely.
He couldn't just say she was the king's wife.
It was a dangerous time.
She had to work in the shadows
Yes.
to protect herself and her son. It's a good reminder that history isn't always about big battles and public speeches.
That's right.
Sometimes it's the whispers and the hidden documents that shape events.
Exactly.
So after diving into Lucy's life,
Mm-hmm.
her relationship with Charles, the political chaos, and this deposition,
Yeah.
what's the takeaway for our listeners?
I think the fascination with Lucy Walter's story really comes down to its ambiguity.
The mystery.
We have these little pieces of evidence. But the puzzle might never be completely solved.
I think that's okay.
I agree.
Sometimes the best stories are the ones that leave us with questions.
They make us think
They challenge us to look at things from different angles.
and to draw our own conclusions.
Exactly.
Even though we may never have all the answers,
Yeah.
we can still enjoy the drama and the mystery of Lucy Walter's life.
It seems safe to say that Lucy Walter, even though she wasn't a queen,
Mm-hmm.
was a master of intrigue.
Absolutely.
Her story shows us that even people who operate behind the scenes
Mm-hmm.
can have a huge impact on history.
And that the search for truth, even when it's difficult,
Yes.
is a worthwhile pursuit.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Lucy Walter.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed piecing together this historical puzzle.
It's a fascinating one.
Until next time,
Yeah.
keep questioning.
Keep exploring.
And as always, keep diving deep.